Hi, folks. So I was taking some time to think, and I thought I'd maybe talk a little bit about something. Normally, you just see me posting game videos anymore, but I thought I'd talk about something a little bit back to the basics here, and that is some of my favorite role-playing games. And I don't mean like role-playing games. I mean, paper and dice. Throw the pen and paper. My hands are all up in here because I don't know what to do with them. Pen and paper tabletop RPG. Um, I'm not gonna list them in any specific order for me. It's not gonna be a one through five or anything. It's just some of my favorites. And then a reason probably why I like them. One of which start out with one of my favorites. One of the ones I played longest. Riffs RPG. I really liked Riffs. It was a Gonzo game. Kitchen sink, anything went. You could do be anything. It had its book lore was its actual canon lore was pretty good. Um, its mechanics are very lackluster, very dated. I'm gonna say, but and you had to house rule it. So I think that's one of the reasons we loved it so much. My group and myself is we'd house ruled it, to be the game we wanted. But it was really gonzo, really fun for that. I think another game really great that people that I really like that people like too is Call of Cthulhu. If you're an H.P. Lovecraft fan, Call of Cthulhu really hits that mark, and it's a good game. It just uses D100. You're not an adventuring like, oh, I'm going to slay the monster, person. You're investigating mysteries, and monsters are usually deadly encounters that end up killing somebody more often than not. So that's kind of fun in that. The tried and true Dungeons and Dragons. I started with like second and third edition, and played that for a few years. That really got me in the tabletop, and now I'm back into fifth edition. Probably here toward the end of fifth edition's life, just because you can't find anybody to play anything else. But yeah, it's D&D. There, if you know the lore is rich. There's a lot of characters. Fifth ed is very fun, I think. Fourth ed, but it's pretty much the standard game that you can find a player group for anything. That's one of my favorite things, and they've got a lot of settings for it. So my personal favorite is the Forgotten Realms. Always has been. I've got the box set from second edition when I started, so it's near and dear to my heart. Let's get into another one. Another one of my favorites is, and this one is probably this might actually be my favorite. I know I said Rifts was like the one I played longest, probably one of my favorites, but this is probably my favorite now and it's canceled, so you can't even get it anymore, which sucks, which was Fantasy Flight Star Wars / their Genesis system. Just cinematic, really great, fun character building. You really you could have three dudes all playing the same character style, same character in class, and they'd all branch in different ways and just create a whole unique character. Their force powers were really well thought out. Vehicle combat, the lightsabers, it was way better than the D21. It was on par with the West End games one. I think it was actually a little better than West End games, because West End games, as you got higher up in levels, like the only thing that like everybody kind of plateaued except for the force users, and they just kind of kept going like way stupid. But in Fantasy Flight, like everybody could just keep going. It was just so fun. I mean, I got a character that has so much experience and just dumped it all into becoming just a gun god. Literally a laser blasting and traditional sword wielding badass. So it was amazing. There are other ones. All Flesh Must Be Eaten, which is a great toolbox zombie game. Really fun. You can make any kind of zombie movie you ever wanted to, right down to, if you wanted to, you could do Call of Duty Zombies. I'm not kidding. It was that was a really fun game. Yeah, I know I've got more that I'm like scratching the back of my brain for the base lines, but I think that's about it for like some of my favorites. Oh, I forgot the Dragon Age RPG. I really enjoyed the Dragon Age RPG. That was kind of fun to go from from video game to tabletop, because normally you go tabletop to video game, and this was just one of those moments where you're like, wow, this is fun, and they didn't take away from the lore. They kind of played with the lore real fun, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I think that was Green Ronin did them, I think. Yeah, good game, fun, solid game. You know, I think I played a little bit of Politium Fantasy, which is again by the same guys that did Rifts. Again, same critique. Fun game, rich setting that's really well thought out, and clunky system that's really outdated. I'd like to mention a couple other guys. I didn't really get to play them, but I do have the copies of their books, and they look really fun. If you really like Rifts and you'd like something that isn't Rifts and isn't like Savage Worlds Rifts, which, you know, I was going to bring up before this, but these guys came to my mind, Jason Richards Publishing did a game called Breach World, which was very Rifts-esque and very fun. He used the Mini D6 system. I read the whole book. I have a copy of it and a copy of the dice that go with it. And it's really fun. It's one of those games that you could get going in like 5, 10, maybe about 15 minutes in reality. About 15 minutes, and you could just play a couple sessions and everybody could have a lot of fun. And then, you know, you could either choose to make it a super long campaign or just everybody had fun with it. And you feel really good for buying the book. And either way, if you did either way, just if you played it 3 sessions of that game, you'd be really happy you bought that book because it was really fun. And the other one is if you're like me, a kid of the 80s, 90s, you know, born mid-80s, and kind of grew up to the 90s, there was a particular Disney show that had a very catchy theme that featured a lovable bear, and it was called Tailspin. And these guys do a RPG set shortly after a alternate history timeline for World War One with anthropomorphic characters. They give you rules to play with humans, but honestly, the meat and flavor of this is playing anthropomorphic, and it's airships. A lot of airships are involved in it. So it's called Wild Skies by Wetinks Games. Whenever I talk about it, I say it's the Tailspin RPG because really it just, when you read it, you're like, man, it sings Tailspin. It sings kind of Tailspin, but it has this really unique world to it, an alternate history take, and it's really fun. I haven't got to play it. I would like to play it, you know, eventually, because it's very interesting. And again, I'm a kid of the 90s, so I love that kind of like, it makes me think of like Tailspin, and I really want that. And then lastly, I'm going to mention Savage Worlds in their riffs. Because I'm a fan of riffs, I really enjoyed their take on riffs. Savage Worlds does a lot of games that are amazing takes. Savage Worlds, you know, once you figure out how to do Savage World, how to play Savage World, you can jump into almost any one of the games licenses they have or games they have, and you can get into it and really enjoy it. And I have enjoyed Savage Rifts. I've given a couple shots. The system is much cleaner than Rifts. Their take on Rifts for me it's nice, but I prefer some of the older original Rift stuff versus theirs, but again, that's a personal flavor thing, and most people tend to love it, and any critiques I have in that area are kind of moot and stupid, in my opinion. You know, it's like, I prefer that Rift storyline and world, but their Rift storyline and world is very well thought out, very well done, and the Tomorrow Legion's fun. So, Pathfinder to me, you know, I'd mentioned them, but they're really just D&D 3.75. They're the D20 system. They're fun. They Paizo stepped up during 4th edition D&D and really kind of just ran with it and continued basically D&D. I have both the player's guide, the main guide, and the advanced player's guide for them, and I have played several sessions. I did enjoy playing as a barbarian and as a gnome summoner, so it was kind of fun. But that's it, folks. Yeah, that's the most I can remember at the moment. Drop a like, a subscribe, a like or a subscribe. See, I'm going to keep that in there. Like or subscribe. Maybe even just drop a comment down below on some of your favorite tabletop RPGs. Or if you want, maybe we could talk about, you know, video game RPGs. Some of your favorite from like the classic systems of PlayStation 1 and before. Because once you hit PlayStation 2, to me, that's you've lost the old school and you've gone modern. We get into some really great RPGs at that point, but there's some really good ones from the classics. So maybe we'll talk about those in the future. All right, well, everybody have a good one. Remember, we love you.